So obviously we put the pick in tonight, drafted Cam. You know, we said we wanted to go through the entire process here, with Cam, and we did that. I'll tell you that, when I first got here, I had watched Cam in the past a little bit, but really haven't studied him a ton. The first thing that when I came in here it was to really watch all the quarterbacks. And I wanted to do it separately with Brian, myself, Chad, the rest of the staff, Reggie, Dave. So that was kind of the process we went through. We watched, every game. That he played it at Miami, Washington State, went back to Incarnate Word. And then we kind of got together and talked about it. So that was the first part of the process. We really started to come together. And I tell you, really before the combine, we made a decision, if we go through the rest of it, we really never met him before, to go through the process and talking with him and how impressed we were with him, just a person, the football intelligence of the person. You could feel, the competitive edge when you talk with them. You can feel the confidence. It's not cocky or arrogant, but there's a confidence there that you need to have as a player and a quarterback. So we went through the combine, his pro day, private workout, got to meet his family. He comes from a great family, great support system. And so, we pretty much had all the answers, answered, all the questions answered, probably a couple of weeks, probably 3 weeks up to the draft, where we felt comfortable and we made that decision.
Amy making that trip is pretty unprecedented. What was her degree of interaction with him? What was the back and forth between you and her after that?
So it just happened to be the owners' meetings down in Florida that week. And, we had it scheduled for that Friday, I believe it was, before the owners' meetings. And, Amy joined us during that time at the, at his private workout. And, she got to talk with him, meet with him. He's from the same area down in Houston, so they had a lot of, common things to talk about. And then, just meeting his parents and she got to see him work out and talk with them. And, we felt great, and she felt great coming away from that workout.
Do you think, Mike, that Cam would have been the best quarterback in a lot of different drafts you've been a part of in the past?
Yes, I think that the talent was there. I think the one thing that stood out to me when I first started watching him is he had, a lot of quarterbacks have, great arm talent, coming out. But the one thing that stood out to me was really just his instincts and his processing ability, the spatial awareness that he has on the field, his pocket awareness. Now, there's things that he has to improve, just like any other young quarterback. But those are the things that really jumped out to me, that I thought, this kid has a chance to be special. And then just going, like I said, going through the process and getting to meet him. And, he's very smart. He's intelligent. At that first meeting at the combine, we had a pretty good idea where we're going.
Mike, how seriously did you consider some of the trade offers that you got for number one?
I did want to listen, because I think you have to do your due diligence and listen. And I did that. But, I think we came to a decision that, we weren't going to move off that pick, and we wanted Cam.
What made you so convinced? I mean, the reports of the conversation was pretty high. What made you so convinced that you should pass that up and have him be the guy that you...
Well, I just think if you identify a franchise quarterback, there's really not a price that you can pay for that, in my mind. Like I always said, that's the most important position on all of sports. And, if you come to a consensus, and we did, that he has the potential to be that, like I said, he's a young quarterback, and he still has a lot of things to work on. But I think the intangibles with him, his work ethic, his want to become better, we felt comfortable with that.
Did those trade offers come before or after the 3-week period where you said, before the draft, where you said you guys had made your mind up?
They came before, yeah, and after, but it was multiple times we had some offers. I don't want to go into specifics of the teams and what the offers were, but, we were approached multiple times for that pick.
How many different teams?
I don't want to go into the specifics on the teams or anything like that, but just like we had offers.
It's no secret that when a GM picks a quarterback, they're almost always connected. Just kind of how convicted were you in connecting yourself to this quarterback, and I guess starting the clock on the window of you have the rookie quarterback, it's time to build.
Yeah, well, I don't think you do it unless you're convicted, and I felt like I was convicted.
Was he the number one player on the board?
He was. Yep.
You hear the comparisons with Patrick, obviously a player you know pretty well. I know that's not exactly fair to compare him to someone like that, but,
Yeah.
but do you put any stock in that?
You know, some of the things I mentioned about instincts and spatial awareness when we studied Patrick coming out, I thought Cam showed that. Now he's got a long way to become Patrick Mahomes, future Hall of Fame, with 3 Super Bowls right now. But there were certain traits I think that I saw, you know, that I've been around Patrick a long time. You know, his ability to process and the instincts kind of stood out to me.
Do you think the veteran receivers you guys have added also help in his development?
Yeah, you know, I think Tyler, you know, bringing him on is going to be big for us. You know, just having a veteran presence in there, dependable. Yeah.
Expect that you're done for tonight, or is there any impulse to try and get back into the first round?
We'll see. I'll have to go back down there, but we'll see.
Does the addition of Lockett, change anything as far as the draft, the projections go? And maybe if you could just look ahead just a little bit as to what might be ahead for day 2.
Yeah, not necessarily. It won't change anything that we have on the board, adding the player. I think our mindset is the same. You know, like I said, and we're going to approach day 2 just seeing who the best available player is on the board for us. Like I said, we have a lot of holes right now that we want to fill. I think we want to stay true to the board and draft the best player that we can.
Feel any more inclined to stick there as opposed to move, or is that TBD?
It's yeah. We'll have to see, you know, what players are on the board at that point.
You're Travis Hunter going to be in the division now. You're going to see him twice a year, and you had a rival give up an awful lot to go get him.
Yeah.
Does that make this decision, your conviction about Cam, their conviction about Travis, maybe put even more of a spotlight on it?
Not necessarily. I mean, Travis is a great player. I knew that when, you know, watching him. Special talent, great kid. But it doesn't put any more pressure, any more spotlight on it now.
What did it mean to be able to make that call for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, it was a special moment. You know, you put a lot of work into get in this position, and it certainly wasn't me. I just had to call him. But, you know, it really was a collaborative effort between coaches and the scouts to come to this decision.
What gives you confidence about Brian's ability to develop a quarterback?
Well, he's been around a lot of pretty good ones now with Peyton and Stafford, and obviously Joe. And he's gone through the development part, and we've had discussions on that and just how they developed Joe and things they did with him. So he's seen it done before, so I have full confidence in Brian.
Mike,
Thank you.
Cam is about to be on the Zoom